You are breaking free from your cocoon with the Scorpio full moon and Mercury stationing direct. So here's everything you need to know to fly into this week of astrology. Hi, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to Just Your Magic Monday, particularly your Magic Monday horoscope for the week of April 22nd to April 28th, 2024, where we are covering, just as we do every single week here in my cosmic corner of the internet with a cosmic beverage in hand, what is ahead for your week ahead, how you will feel this week's as well as every week's astrological transits and themes threaded into your daily reality, and furthermore, how you can co-create with these cosmic currents in order to navigate your universe with more magic and alignment. And when it comes to swimming through the currents of this week's astrology, the currents are strong. Okay, we've got a full moon and a water sign squaring Pluto. So you can do whatever it is that you want. When we talk about Pluto energy, it's about empowerment. I'm not telling you what to do. Okay, I'm not telling you what to do. You do you. But if I were you, I wouldn't swim against the intense currents of the Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, and here's why. I don't mean that in a disempowering way. I don't mean it that we should give up on life and just resign ourselves to the cosmic circumstances. All I'm saying is that you can't fight the feeling. Especially with this week of astrology, you cannot fight the feeling. The feeling will win. You could try to fight the feeling, but the feeling may win. Because this full moon on Tuesday, April 23rd, lands in the sign Scorpio, a water sign. These feelings go deep. These are deep feelings that, with the full moon casting a spotlight on these deep emotions, are coming up to the surface for the purpose of transmutation with the square to Pluto, but some of it is not themes that we're wanting to deal with. It's things that we're not wanting to acknowledge. When we talk about Pluto, this is an energy and an archetype that in many instances exists within the shadows of our psyche, the things that we don't want to deal with, the secrets that other people may be keeping from us. Okay, listen, Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, there could be secrets revealed this week. It's like what has not been dealt with, what's been in the shadows. Now we've got a full moon casting a spotlight on it. And it's like once you know something, you can't unknow it. And at the time of this full moon, we're just on the heels of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction over the weekend, which is still very much alive within the collective. And I just want to share, if you haven't looked at your all signs forecast, you'll want to make sure to do that. And that aspect, to distill it, was about growth. And growth looks beautiful. Sometimes, we're in Taurus season, hence all of my plant analogies. But when we are stretching our leaves up to the sky, it feels so good. When you're moving into a new chapter and you're seeing growth and exciting new arenas, it feels good. But to grow tall up to the sky, we must also grow deep, like our roots must get deeper. And there's an energy with the Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto around having to deal with what's in our soil that we're not necessarily wanting to deal with. If there is a rock underneath your roots, at some point you're gonna have to face the rock in order to continue growing up, right? Or else with the first storm, you'll topple over because your roots haven't sunk enough into the earth. You have to deal with the rock. You have to deal with what is beneath in order to continue growing and stretching high. So with the Scorpio full moon, there can be something that you are being asked to face for the purpose of empowerment. This squares Pluto. And that's why I'm saying you can't fight the feeling. Okay, you can try. The square to Pluto can sometimes be feeling things so intensely that sometimes it's just easier to pretend the rock is not there and to distract ourselves. But the Scorpio full moon really asks you to embrace the highs and the lows, the happies and the sads, because they are signaling you something. It's very interesting that this happens right before Mercury stations direct, which also happens this Thursday. So it's like what's coming up is helping us grow forward. It's not always pretty or easy to deal with, but it's helping us move forward. And we're on the growth path, all of us as a collective. And the thing about being on the growth path is that it's rarely comfortable. Okay, it's rarely comfortable to be on the growth path. It is the harder path. And the energy of Pluto, we may have to confront some of our fears, right? There's almost an energy with this full moon of like a butterfly breaking out of the cocoon, right? And almost having this energy around, ooh, can I go back? Like having that first essentially peel out of the cocoon and almost just wanting to undo it. But as we stretch into new dimensions, we cannot return back to the cocoon that we were in before. We could just be like, never mind, let me go back. But it's like, we gotta keep pushing through. The only way out is through. So while the Scorpio full moon can be intense, like I said, secrets could be revealed, whether it's things that you've kept secret from yourself or somebody else has kept secret from you, there could be intense dynamics coming to the surface. It is helping you move forward. And you should feel that with Mercury stationing direct this week. This ability to take all the data of eclipse season, right, and the strong pulse towards change and transformation and be able to move forward. You know, eclipse season kind of put a lot of us through the ringer. And even if you didn't have something major shake up within your life, we had a lot of Chiron energy. Some of us were dealing with triggers, we were dealing with wounds. Pluto energy makes us go deep. These are not easy aspects of life to deal with, but there is this energy around. Now that we see where the rock is, now that we see how big it is, we have the knowledge around how our roots can sink deeper and support our growth into this next iteration of our height, of where our tree is growing, right? When we talk about the Scorpio full moon, it is of course a balance between the energy of Taurus, which is about building and accumulating, with the energy of Scorpio, which is around transforming, releasing, and destroying. And so there is this delicate balance around what it is that we're being called to build within our lives, the growth and the change that we're moving towards, as well as for some of us, that growth, that change, that liberation, it's not so much showing up in the addition of arenas, but the release of certain arenas, certain thought patterns, you know, with the square to Pluto that are no longer serving you. Awareness of certain dynamics or patterns within your life and the chokehold they've had over you, leaking your power out. The learning of certain information that is going to support your journey forward. Not always easy to deal with. It's not always necessarily what we wanted to hear, but one thing's for sure, it is helping us move forward. And this week's astrology is a reminder that if we do not evolve, we decline. Choose who it is that you are transforming into rather than who it is that you've been. Choose to be the butterfly and no longer the cocoon. So we will break down everything you need to know about this astrology thematically as well as day by day. But before we do, take a step inside my cosmic cafe. Let me know what you all are sipping on to start the week. And if you watch Magic Monday and you're a patron of the Cosmic Cafe, you may know that this drink is looking a little more black than my typical coffees. And I just want to make it known that that is not by choice. It does feel on brand for the Scorpio full moon that I have this intense coffee drink. But if I had it my way, this drink would have some almond milk in it. I ran out of almond milk, so I'm drinking an iced black Americano. If we had it my way, this iced Americano would be a little bit of a lighter hue, but alas, that's just not how the cookie crumbled today. And honestly, the way that the cookie crumbled today, not one thing went my way. Getting ready for Magic Monday. And I feel like some of us might feel that way, navigating this week of astrology, just with a Scorpio full moon. Because in getting ready for Magic Monday, it's not that anything big and life-altering happened. It was just a lot of little things where just nothing was going right. And not seeing almond milk when I opened the fridge, it was like the final straw. I had a very dramatic emotional response to it. And it's bigger than the almond milk, right? Someone would have probably seen the emotional response of me not having almond milk and the little temper tantrum that I threw and be like, that is so dramatic. She's blowing things out of proportion. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely was. And some of us very well may do that with the Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, having very intense emotional reactions, even if it's something somewhat minor. But I think it was just one thing on top of the other. And ultimately, with the energy of the Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, just the utter loss of control that I was feeling around, can I do anything right? Like I couldn't even get almond milk. Couldn't even buy almond milk for my gosh darn Americano to fill Magic Monday. Really? After everything else that went wrong today, there's not even almond milk? So it's just important to do exactly what I did in getting ready for Magic Monday. You know, call upon the Taurus sun, bring yourself back into this present moment, breathe, connect to your physical body, keep perspective. Like the energy of Scorpio, especially with this full moon squaring Pluto, we could definitely go to extremes, right? Black or white. Because there's no almond milk, that means that I'm unprepared. That means that I'm a horrible person. And that means, how is my YouTube channel ever going to succeed if I can't even get almond milk? Like, ridiculous, right? Ridiculous. But I kind of had to go there in order to get that out of my system. And I feel like that's going to be important in navigating this week. Again, it could be having a meltdown over something big or something small, but you can't fight the feelings. Sometimes the only way out is through. Like I'd been trying to keep it together all morning, like, okay, this is annoying, but keep going. And then finally, when I saw the almond milk, I just had to have a mini meltdown. And then I got it out of my system. And here we are, ice black Americano and all. Life does go on. The world does keep turning. And sometimes we just gotta let ourselves feel the emotion, as dramatic, as out of proportion as it may be, to allow ourselves to continue to move forward. So alas, let's go ahead and take it into our vibe check of the week. So if you are new to Magic Monday, hello, my name is Haley Comet. I promise I typically do not have temper tantrums in front of my fridge when I didn't get almond milk. It was a little dramatic, I swear. That was like the 10th thing that had gone wrong today. I swear, I'm not always so dramatic. Alas, let's keep it moving. All we can do with the Scorpio full moon week. But Vibe Check of the Week is a segment that we do here on Magic Monday, where we essentially liken every astrological energy that we will experience this week, from Mars conjoining Neptune over the weekend, the Scorpio full moon, Mercury stationing direct. We compare what those energies feel like to a real life scenario, so that even if you're not dialed into the intricacies of what it means when Mercury is switching directions, you can tune into, oh, I've been through a situation like that, or I know what that feels like, to tune into how this energy will surface within your universe. So we will say for this week's astrology, and feel free to sub in whichever details align for this hypothetical scenario, but we will say that a couple of weeks ago, your coworker made a joke to you. And at the time, it hurt your feelings, but you were willing to let it go. You're like, I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it. But keep in mind, Mercury's been retrograde for the past couple of weeks, which sometimes can make us replay certain conversations. And the more that you're thinking about it, the more you're like, oh no, that hurt my feelings. And the more you also have questions of, is that how you feel about me? And you're trying to suppress these emotions because you're like, come on, you can't say anything, that was so long ago. You're just trying to keep the peace at work, just do your job. But beneath the surface, these emotions are getting deeper and darker and more powerful, and it's getting less and less manageable to keep them hidden. So these feelings have been simmering and festering, and they've been leaking out in small ways. Your resentment around your coworker asks you for something and you're like, do it yourself. Like, it's definitely leaking out in other ways, but you're not dealing with the core issue of it. You're keeping that suppressed until finally your coworker's like, what's the deal? I asked for help on this pitch and you just rolled your eyes at me and made a snarky comment. Like, is there something going on? And then finally the secret is revealed, or rather everything you've been holding on to, you can't help yourself. You just kind of let your coworker have it around how that comment deeply hurt your feelings, and you can't believe your coworker sees you that way. You know, like my almond milk meltdown and this meltdown, sometimes with the Scorpio full moon, we have intense reactions, right? Like, it was likely a joke said in jest. It likely wasn't a big deal. But again, it's like the more that we submerge things underneath the surface, oftentimes the more and more powerful that they can grow. So it's like when that emotion is finally surfacing and you're finally dealing with the problem that's been affecting you and your coworker's relationship, it is snowballed, right? It has become something so much bigger than just this joke. And so your coworker, in light of this, is like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. Let's get to the root of this. Because oftentimes we've got to allow that, poison to come to the surface for the purpose to move forward, right? So your coworker is like, I had no idea you felt that way. That makes so much sense. I'm so sorry I said that. How can we move forward? How can we ensure within our working relationship that I'm not saying anything that's hurting your feelings? That's not how I see you. Because a lot of times when things exist in the shadows, we can create all of these narratives and all of these stories. Important to be mindful of. We've got Mars aligned with Neptune this week, right? We can create all these narratives and stories around, well, this is why my coworker never gives me the good projects, because this is how they really think of me and see me. And sometimes to genuinely create the pathway forward towards healing, we have to deal with the ugliness of the truth of what we've suppressed. We have to confront things that are not comfortable to deal with. We have to be willing to allow these intense emotions to surface in order to transmute the relationship so it stops having so much power on us, what it is that we're shoving into the shadows. And when we consider the axis of the Taurus Sun and Scorpio Moon, this is the axis of building and destroying. And especially with this full moon squaring Pluto, the planet of destruction as well, sometimes when we don't deal with things it can be destructive, either destructive to the relationship between you and your coworker, because again, it's like leaking out that poison that you've been shoving down. It's leaking out in resentment and snarky comments here and there. It can be destructive. And sometimes for us to build, right, the Taurus sun, we have to be willing to go into the shadows, to deal with what's beneath the surface, to build forward, to grow taller. And with Mercury direct, it's like you giving the clearance around not having to rethink that conversation over and over. It's like finally, okay, we hashed it out, let's move forward. Again, we're on the growth path. So it's not that everybody necessarily is having this confrontation with the coworker. You know, some of you could have it within a relationship around needing to deal with the root of what's beneath the surface, of what's causing, you know, these side effects of resentment or snarky comments or what have you, like wanting to deal with kind of the ugly truth that's beneath the surface. That could be showing up for some. And for some of you, it's not showing up within a relationship. It's like something within my life has got to change. For some, it's dealing with certain fears, like it likely wasn't comfortable to be able to allow your heart and your emotions to be seen so vulnerably in sharing with your coworker how they hurt you. And for some of you, with the Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, it's like feeling that your life is changing, but being fearful of it. Like almost having that first, you know, swipe out of the cocoon and then being like, can I go back to the cocoon? Like growth is scary. If we do not evolve, we decline. So there's this energy around there might be stuff coming up, whether it's fears, whether it's, you know, fights or frustrations, whatever is coming up. It's important to keep moving through it. Find ways. Where is the pathway forward? How can I move forward? We're no longer interested in going backward. Mercury is stationing direct. How can we move forward? How can we have new sorts of conversations? How can I have new ways of framing the situation? How can I be able to evolve into new iterations of our relationship as coworkers, of our relationship as partners, of my relationship of myself, of my life overall? How can we move through it? It's not always comfortable to move through it. Sometimes we have to go deeper in order to grow taller. And that is really the ask of this week's astrology. So we'll take this into our day-by-day analysis. I do just want to let you know that there are timestamps available below. Should you feel called to jump to a particular day, jump back to a particular day. I also want to let you know every time that I mention is under the time zone PDT. I'm located on the west coast of the United States, so that's the time zone I utilize. So make sure to adjust to your time zone, because a lot of the energies that I'm chatting about very well may land at a different time or even on a different day than the ones that I list. I also want to say I have a tendency to talk very fast, so feel free to hit the gear icon and slow me down. Adjust the playback speed, okay, to make the rate of my speaking align with your rate of processing. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into the astrology of Monday, April 22nd. So happy Monday, April 22nd. First things first, happy Earth Day. Out of all of the planets that we study, this planet is my very favorite, so let's treat our home well. Let's appreciate the beauty of nature. I love that Earth Day falls during Taurus season. I think that's so beautifully aligned. But when it comes to Monday's astrology, even though the full moon is on Tuesday morning for PDT, we are absolutely going to feel the full moon feels on Monday, Moon Day, absolutely building. The moon will be in Libra all day long, which we know Libra is the sign of connectivity, of keeping the peace, of harmony, of sweeping things beneath the rug. But there's an energy around trying to cover the taste of vinegar with honey. This was weaved into the vibe check around that energy of just trying to keep the peace, right? Like beneath the surface, you are just reeling and replaying that conversation and thinking, how could they be so disrespectful? Is that how they see me? But IRL, you're trying to keep the peace, you're trying to be nice, you're trying to get along, but that hurt leaks out. It just naturally does. That when we try to cover the taste of vinegar with honey, we're gonna taste some bitterness. And there's sort of an energy on Monday where we're trying to hide the taste of vinegar with honey. We're trying to sweeten things up. And again, something's coming out with the Scorpio full moon. There's something that's being revealed that's sort of like the root cause or what's beneath the surface, right? We can put as much honey as we want, but there's still vinegar. There's still something bitter. And it's not the most pleasant to deal with necessarily, but there is an energy around if we want to move forward, sometimes it's best to deal with it so that we stop living in this loop of, passive aggressiveness or being snarky or leaving this person to guess, like, why are they mad at me without just saying it, right? And it keeps both of you in suspension. Like they can't really continue their connection with you, and you can't move forward within your own mind, your own thinking, because you're still rehashing that conversation without even giving the other person the opportunity to explain themselves. So I definitely see with this energy, there could be potentially like kind of passive aggressiveness, or someone who's not being very clear with you, or like just trying to keep the peace, but you can feel underneath the surface. You can feel that something's off. You can feel that there's some vinegar. You can feel that there's some bitterness here. So it's like, can we deal with it? Like, you know, we don't need to act like it's sweet and cover it with honey. Like sometimes we have to deal with what's bitter in life. And the reason this is reflected by Monday's astrology is because the Libra moon, again, building to full the next day, will oppose Mercury, oppose Chiron, oppose Venus. So again, when we talk about Chiron, that's the energy of these raw pain points. And this was a hallmark part of the Mercury retrograde story, was Mercury aligning with Chiron. Like I said, a lot of us had to deal with like triggers or just aspects of our healing, things coming to the surface. And again, with the Libra energy, there's like a desire around shoving it under the rug or not wanting to deal with it. But it does come to the surface one way or another. It can either come up around being direct and saying, hey, this is what's bothering me, or it can come through in passive aggressive ways. So I just want to say on Monday, with the energy of Libra moon opposing all these Aries placements, there can be a battle between wanting to keep the peace versus wanting to say what's genuinely on your heart, wanting to do what other people want you to do versus wanting to advocate for yourself. Like there can feel to be some tension around those arenas building within Monday's astrology. And I would definitely say another kind of balance energy that we can feel is the balance around wanting to jump in and be very impulsive versus the desire to want to think things through and balance things out. Do keep in mind, Mercury is still retrograde until this Thursday. And when it comes to Mercury getting ready to station, we typically really feel the Mercury retrograde effects. So definitely an important time to reread, think critically about your words before they are said. I'm not giving anyone, cosmic permission slip to, lash out at somebody or be cruel because something's been festering. Yes, there can be an ask to deal with things that have been, growing in the dark or in the shadows, but do be intentional about your words. Try not to allow emotions to get the better of you by being outwardly rude or even cruel with your language. Do strive to choose your words intentionally for the purpose of moving forward, right? Dealing with what's beneath the surface and moving forward. There's a focus around how can we move forward rather than getting in the same loop around fighting about the same thing over and over. How can we look beneath the surface? What are we really fighting about here? What are we really mad about here? What am I really mad about here? Or again, maybe you're feeling this within your life where there's all of these things that are frustrating you, but there might be something beneath the surface that you're really mad about. Like for my little temper tantrum. It wasn't about the almond milk. It wasn't about the almond milk. Cue Vanderpump Rules. It's not about the pasta. Seriously, it's not about the almond milk. It's not about the pasta. So rarely is what it is that we are fighting about the actual issue. Whether that's within friendships or within relationships, within relationships, a lot of times there can be just the silliest disagreements. And it's like, it's not about not closing the cabinets. It's about A, B, and C. Like there's a desire to cut beneath the surface. Like, where is this frustration really coming from? And maybe if we deal with that, we won't have to deal with the symptoms of that underlying root cause, if that makes sense. And so with the energy of Monday, absolutely, the Libra moon, there could be this desire around wanting to keep things under the surface and keep it nice and keep it friendly. But there is an ask with the Mercury, Chiron, Venus around what within is hurting. And furthermore, with the building Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, what needs change? What needs transformation? And so on Monday, when it comes to your daily tasks, double check, okay? With Mercury retrograde, make sure to double check. Sometimes with building full moons, things feel very busy. We feel very hectic. We feel very all over the place. Keep in mind it's Taurus season, so remember to ground down. We've got a Venus sun, we've got a Venus moon. So if you have a busy day at at work, maybe take that extra time to set up the infuser or eat something delicious or ground yourself down to not get swept away within the hectic energy of the full moon. And do strive to get your work done prior to 4:24 p.m. as that is the point that the moon will be void. Closing aspect is the Libra moon opposing Venus and Aries. So enjoy your evening, buy yourself flowers, go for a walk, eat something delicious. You know, even though the Scorpio full moon is asking us to deal with the ugly truth beneath the surface, don't forget it's Taurus season. You're also here to enjoy the beautiful things of life as well. It's a balance, right? So on Tuesday, April 23rd, we have the full moon in Scorpio landing at 8:20 a.m. PDT. This lunation exacts at 4 degrees Scorpio. So you will want to see wherever within your chart you have 4 degrees Scorpio to see which life arena is being spotlighted and potentially what secrets are being revealed, what awarenesses are coming to the surface, what change you are desiring, what transformation you're being guided towards. And when it comes to this lunation, it squares Pluto. So the real ask with this full moon is, how is it that we can move forward? Again, the vibe check is a fight. Not everybody needs to fight, but there's an ask. If there is a fight, if there is a confrontation, how can we fight forward? Rather than spinning our wheels in circles, rather than just being in this weird passive-aggressive energy, how can we fight forward? Not fighting for the purpose of being toxic, but being able to deal with the root cause and be able to genuinely move forward, genuinely be able to start a new chapter within our relationship, one that's even more powerful than before because you've dealt with what's beneath the surface. I think a lot of times when we suppress and we hide, it can lead to certain erosive arenas of life. And that could show up within relationships, like when we are stuffing down, you know, this is hurting my feelings, but I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it because it leaks out. You know, when we talk about Scorpio, we talk about the emotional and energetic frequencies. And even if you think you're being sneaky, you think that you are keeping what it is that you're frustrated about beneath, if it's someone near and dear to you, they can feel energetically when something's off, right? And it leaks out what's beneath the surface, that resentment, that frustration. It leaks out in the comments that you make and the way that you look at them and the way that you two problem solve. It leaks out, even if you think you're being sneaky and keeping it beneath the surface. And even when it comes to your own journey, like outside of the lens of other people, when it comes to things that we're not dealing with, it also has symptoms. It also leaks out in different arenas. If there's certain things that we don't want to deal with, sometimes we can turn to certain destructive habits because we don't want to deal with that. Let's shove that into the crevices of our mind. Or if we need change in a certain arena, let's say we really want a new job, right? And we're trying to keep that truth, that knowing around, I've got to do something different. We try to keep it beneath the surface. It will leak out, right? It will be visible within our work performance. You know, we might make mistakes. We might be a little sassier than we mean to. Like a lot of times, what we feel like we keep in the shadows, people energetically sense and pick up. And listen, I'm not saying everybody needs to come in to this week just ready to fight everybody and deal with all of these underlying themes. It's just being aware of these symptoms within your life around, you know, the frustration you're experiencing, the snarky comments, whatever symptoms are coming from and stemming from a root cause of where it is that you're craving transformation or what it is that you're being asked to face or where it is that you're being asked to grow. As sneaky as we can be, okay, with the Scorpio full moon, we're not that sneaky. Like it is felt. And so there may be certain emotions on Tuesday that surface that aren't the prettiest, okay? They're not the prettiest. You're trying to put honey on the vinegar or however else is coming to the surface. With the square to Pluto, you very well may have a meltdown in front of your fridge. That was a symptom, right? Like the meltdown of me not having almond milk, that was a symptom. Like there was a root cause around why I was so frustrated today, and all of those little things kind of added on top of it. And sometimes that last straw is the thing that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. Like the almond milk was the reason that I descended into my little meltdown energy, but it was bigger than that. And I think the Scorpio full moon is asking us to really get deeper on what am I really bothered by? Because to me, I think it was just feeling out of control of my life around, gosh, there's not even almond milk here, right? And that was the root cause, is feeling out of control of my life, having a meltdown around not having almond milk. That was just a symptom of what was beneath the surface, right? And if I don't deal with that, I'm gonna keep having these little temper tantrums around minor things. So I think there's just an ask for us to really feel the depths of what's coming up, just know you could be a little dramatic. You could blow things out of proportion. You could be more prone towards extreme thinking, okay? With the energy of Pluto, it goes black and white. Like it can go from I don't have almond milk to I'm the worst and everything's the worst and my life is the worst and it's all going downhill from here. Like Pluto energy can go that way. And I do want to highlight, just in case anybody is having a confrontation this week with the energy of this fixed T-square in the cosmos. Keep in mind, fixed sun, fixed moon, squaring Pluto in Aquarius, a fixed sign. Fixed energy is very stubborn. And so there can be an energy around wanting to win or prove our point at whichever cost. And again, the focus should be, how can we move forward? It's better to move forward than to be right. Okay, and definitely when it comes to a fixed T-square, there can be a desire to cling around things should be this way. Right? My life should look this way. And when there's a deviation around how things are showing up now versus how I thought that they would be, that's where the temper tantrum begins, around things need to be like this. Like Pluto can represent where it is that we are clinging or forcing or wanting things to be a certain way, right? At a certain point, you got to flow with how things are around, listen, I wanted a different drink today. I wanted to make a little latte. That's not how the cookie crumbled. There wasn't milk, right? I wanted this situation to go in this particular way. That's not how the cookie crumbled. We move forward. And especially with the fixed T-square, there can be an attachment around how you wanted things to be. Like again, Taurus, Scorpio, sometimes it can bring up themes of control, right? Of wanting to control things, of control situations, as well as awarenesses of what in our life feels out of control. Like with the energy of Scorpio, full moon squaring Pluto, there are some of us that are amidst a major transformation. Like things are evolving and there's fears that you're dealing with. And there's just this feeling around trying to grasp for something and feeling out of control, which sometimes can lead to, more dramatic responses because we're just looking for something to control. Like if I can't even control the almond milk in my coffee, how am I meant to deal with the big things in my life that feel out of control, right? It's like the little things are just symptoms for something that's deeper. For some, it could be this feeling around things are out of control or things are transforming. So trying to cling or find some element of control over the small things. And again, feeling that it's more important to be right than to move forward. The focus is moving forward. There could be an energy around, I've got to win at all costs. I've got to prove my point at all costs. I've got to, annihilate my coworker at all costs. Like again, the focus is on moving forward. It's not about just bring all this stuff up to the surface just to cause destruction. It's around, hey, this is what's beneath the surface. How can we transform? How can we move forward? How can we choose growth? Growth of our connection, growth of my own path, growth of our trajectory. How can we choose who it is that we're evolving into rather than who we've been? And to do that, we do need to let go of some ego, which could be coming to the surface with the full moon squaring Pluto. And the Scorpio full moon also feels like those mounting emotions. Like, when you're trying so hard not to cry, so you just try to suppress it, and then finally the last little thing happens. The almond milk isn't there. And finally, that's the moment that you have this big reaction, right? Because it's built, it's snowballed, it's got bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why I'm saying, don't fight the feeling on Tuesday. I'm not saying you have to have a meltdown and be self-destructive and create havoc, but there is asked to feel what it is that you are feeling because it can help you get to the root cause around what's really bothering you. And on Tuesday, the moon enters Scorpio at 8:20 a.m. So just know the moon's void prior to that point. And then when the moon enters Scorpio, intense emotions, especially since we're building to the Scorpio full moon, which exacts at 8:20 a.m. On Wednesday, April 24th, we are in the Scorpio full moon hangover. So we could be, emotionally or energetically processing whatever transpired the day prior. And it really just asks for gentleness with yourself. Sometimes around full moons, we feel restless and we have a hard time sleeping. And sometimes we feel exhausted and drained. And, for those of you who happen to have a disagreement, like oftentimes after conflict, we feel exhausted. We feel emotionally tapped out. And so on Wednesday, I would just say, being gentle with yourself, with whatever is coming up emotionally, energetically. And the ask of Wednesday is around, how can we move forward? in a constructive manner. Because like I said with the Scorpio full moon, sometimes things can get a little destructive, right? Like sometimes we want to have these big responses. We want to like burn down the relationship with our coworker because we feel so disrespected. We want to give up on trying to film Magic Monday because there was no almond milk. Like sometimes we could blow things out of proportion and be like, well, it's all over now, right? And just want to burn it all down. But the energy of the Scorpio moon trining Saturn at 3:52 p.m. is around how can we build forward? Now that we've gotten to the roots, now that we've uncovered what's beneath, that now that we've gotten beneath the pleasantries and gotten to the real crux, the real core of the issue, how do we go forward, right? With the trine to Saturn, how are we going to strategically ensure that this transformation is sustained, right? Is it that we need new rules as coworkers, that we don't joke about certain things? Is it that we need to create a foundation where we feel comfortable coming to one another if something does hurt our feelings? Like, what are the new rules that we're going to put in place for us to no longer have these issues? Are there new rules we need to put in place? Are there new boundaries that we need to put in place? And again, even if this is not coming up within a connection to somebody else, if there's just something within yourself, emotions that are asking to be felt, change that is necessary. With the trine to Saturn, it's around what are the new habits that I can integrate in order to sustain this change that I'm wanting to make? How can I research new jobs if I want a change of job? How can I really get clear around what's really bothering me so I could deal with the symptoms of how I'm coping, right? Which some of which may not be good for me, truly. They could be more destructive than constructive. There's just this energy where sometimes we gotta blow it all up with the energy of the Scorpio full moon, get to the root cause of it, and then the energy of the trine to Saturn is around, okay, how are we gonna rebuild? How are we gonna move forward? And this is so silly, but if you have intense emotions this week and you're frustrated, one question to ask yourself is, am I hangry? Being hangry, hunger angry, is a real thing. Okay, it is absolutely a real thing, especially during Taurus season. We do not see the world the same when we are hungry, right? When we are hangry. Okay, we just don't. Like me filming this podcast, like I said, had kind of a weird, bad morning, and I was just getting grumpier and grumpier sitting here in the cosmic chair. So I took a break in between Tuesday and Wednesday to go get a snack. And when I say I feel like a different gal, I'm really not someone, I don't know why I'm like this, but my hunger cues just aren't there. Typically the first sign that I have around, oh, I should probably eat something, is when I start to notice that I'm getting kind of grumpy or when I'm getting a little cranky. Sometimes it's important to ask like, oh, am I hangry? And then I eat and I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Turns out that the world isn't over for me and that it's not the worst thing ever. Turns out life will go on. I know I just had a melodramatic temper tantrum, but turns out it's all good. I just needed some baked bean snacks. I just needed a little snack, okay? You know, it's Taurus season. And yes, we're having intense emotions that can be getting at real arenas of our life, right? Real underlying issues that we're wanting to deal with for the purpose of growing forward. But with the energy of Taurus season, ask yourself if you are caring for your physical body in order to process these emotions, right? Like the energy of an earth sun and a water moon, it's important, yes, that you are feeling and healing all of these underlying emotions, but also those emotions are encapsulated within this physical vessel. And when we're not taking care of our vessel, that's when we can blow things out of proportion and show up in ways that we're not proud of, you know, a little bit more cranky or grumpy than usual, right? Because our body is asking for nourishment. So it's not that taking a nap and eating a snack solves all your problems, but it does get you in the right grounded space to be able to deal with them and to put them in the right size. Like again, when we are hangry, we can make things bigger than they are. But once we have food in our belly and we slept enough and we drank water, we're in a space where we're able to see the actual size of the issue and be able to move forward with the trine to Saturn. So all I'm saying this Taurus season, if you're getting a little grumpy, maybe grab a snack. May I recommend these? Let's see. They're called Harvest Snaps. Shout out to Harvest Snaps, not sponsored at all. This is just generally what I'm snacking on. Harvest Snaps saved Magic Monday, okay? They saved me from being hangry and letting my grumpiness get in the way of our horoscope. And I do want to highlight with the energy of Scorpio moon, trine Saturn, it's a great day for your responsibilities, right? Doing the things that you know will genuinely help you in life. Again, it could be so tempting when things feel out of control, just want to spiral, just want to check out, just want to be like, well, I give up on Magic Monday. There's just no almond milk, or I quit my job because I don't want to deal with that coworker. Like sometimes there can be a pull around just wanting to burn it all down, right? With the full moon squaring Pluto. But the energy of Scorpio moon trine Saturn, it asks, okay, how can I take things into my own hands in order to, feel better with the Scorpio moon trining Saturn? Like it could be tempting to just do things that you know are bad for you. If you had a bad day, just eat junk food and watch television. And again, there's nothing wrong with having those days. But with the energy of Scorpio moon trine Saturn, it's like, what is genuinely going to show up for me right now? How am I genuinely going to support myself right now? Rather than burying these emotions with, fast food and TV, should I go for a walk? Should I work on this creative project that I like? Like, what is going to constructively allow me to process and move forward? And the next day, early the next day, the Scorpio moon will oppose Jupiter and Uranus. So there can be some restlessness building at night. So again, the Scorpio moon trine Saturn, make sure that you're doing things that make you feel grounded and tethered, because sometimes we can feel a little impulsive, okay? And keep in mind, Mercury is just about to station direct, so it's not the time to jump into things impulsively. And I just found a crumb on my lip gloss, so I apologize if anybody was annoyed by that, but it's Taurus season. I'm gonna snack during Magic Monday. It's just gonna happen. On Thursday, April 25th, let's start with the headline. Headline, Mercury retrograde is over. And before you celebrate and sign all the contracts and make all the decisions and all of the other no-nos during Mercury retrograde, do keep in mind, Mercury is still treading through degrees that it has been to prior. It will not clear the post-retrograde shadow until May 13th. So it's not saying that we can't move forward, like life continues on, but I'm just saying it's yellow light energy. Okay, it's yellow light, you can still go, but just make sure to be cautious, as you are going and as you're moving forward. And again, Mercury retrograde flips the gaze inward. It's more introspective. It's more concerned with the past. It was rehashing that joke over and over and over again and getting hurt every time you thought about it with Mercury's alignment with Chiron. And now with Mercury stationing, there's like this desire around, I've learned all the data that I'm going to learn from that particular conversation. Like it's time to let it go. It's time to let it go and march forward. And again, that confrontation helped you let it go because you got to hear their perspective of why they said that joke. You have this new pathway around how the two of you are going to interact so that there's not these huge miscommunications or huge misunderstandings or huge hurt feelings. And now you have this clearance around, okay, it's time to get some new stimuli in my brain. It's time to have some new conversations. It's time to move forward with some new work projects. Like, I don't need to navigate my life looking through the rear view mirror. Like we don't drive that way, right? Looking towards the past. We need to look away from the rear view mirror around what's already happened and look through the front window. Look out at the road in front of us. See the world in terms of possibilities. So you should feel, it'll be a slow influence, but you should start to feel this building around feeling like things are finally moving forward. Feeling this energy around getting clearance to move into a new chapter of your life. Slowly and steadily, we're in Taurus season, Mercury and Aries might have you raring to go, ready to cite all the things and do all the things, but one step at a time. Just enjoy this perspective shift. Suddenly there's like this energy around being more fixated on the past to wanting to move forward, being more fixated on going within and kind of contemplating to being more interested in the external world. We're taking all the data from Mercury retrograde and we're moving forward. Huge pulse this week around pushing into the future. Ready or not, like I said, with Scorpio full moon squaring Pluto, you might not be sure if you're ready for the future, but alas, it's time. You could start to doubt yourself when you make that first swipe out of the cocoon, but it's like at that point, you have to see the strength of your wings. If you give up now, you'll never see the strength of your wings. So choose transformation, choose moving forward. And to a lunar perspective, in the morning time, we have the Scorpio moon opposing Uranus and opposing Jupiter because that conjunction is now separating in the cosmos. Still very alive, still very active. Make sure to check out the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction because we're going to really feel that until mid-May. These are two slow-moving planets, so they're still in orb, so definitely check that out. And the Scorpio moon is kind of like activating it. It's like pinging at that because keep in mind, Jupiter-Uranus was breakthrough energy. And then the Scorpio full moon was kind of breakdown energy. And sometimes there is breakthroughs in the breakdown, right? Like sometimes when we finally allow ourselves to cry or finally allow ourselves to go there in terms of the fight that we've been wanting to have or the disagreement we've been wanting to have, we have a breakthrough, right? We're finally able to move forward because it's no longer swimming within. We're finally just allowing ourselves, hey, I'm frustrated, let me cry, and maybe gaining awareness on what's really bothering us, or finally having that confrontation around this is what's bothering me, how can we move forward forward, being able to do just that, move forward. And with the energy of Scorpio moon opposing Jupiter and Uranus, there is a restlessness here. You know, that full moon was involved in a fixed T-square, and there can be a frustration around, I don't want things to be this way. And even when there's strong Uranus energy in the air, we can just feel super restless. Like we just want change. We just want everything to be different. We could want to change our whole life because of this issue with our coworker, right? Like, well, forget this person. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to move to Morocco. I'm going to start over because this coworker disrespected me so much. Like we can get this urge around wanting to change everything in our life or wanting to burn everything down. And it's not to say that we're not changing, that we're not growing. Absolutely. We're all on the growth path this week, okay? But oftentimes, if we choose that path around burning it all down, moving to Morocco, and never dealing with this conflict or this issue with our coworker, we're losing out on that opportunity to genuinely grow from that situation, right? Like if a similar situation awaits you in Morocco where there's a disagreement with a neighbor and the neighbor makes a joke to you and you decide at that point, well, then I'll just move to Canada, you're just circumventing the growth that life school is trying to teach you around, no, there's a lesson here. Like we can't circumvent growth. We can't circumvent the more challenging components of life. That's where the transformation awaits, is how we deal with sometimes the hard stuff or the raw stuff. And so there can be this restlessness in wanting to change everything. It's not that everything is the issue. Get curious. What's the deep rooted issue? Where are you genuinely craving change? Where are you genuinely craving empowerment or transformation? Start there, because wherever you go, there you are. And you could just be feeling this energy around, well, forget this, I'll just do something different. Are you going to be met with a different person, a different face, a different argument, but the same lesson? Are you going to run away from it that time as well? We got to face it. The only way out is through. So there could be elements of that restlessness coming to the surface. Because again, with Scorpio full moon, some of us are going to be a little dramatic with it. Like, oh, I don't actually need to change my whole life. I just needed to eat something. Oh, I don't actually need to change my whole life. I just need to go get almond milk, right? Like we could be blowing things out of proportion and making decisions from that space around, I just need change. Something's got to change, without taking the time to like deeply contemplate what generally does need change. Like, where is it that I'm craving transformation? Am I dealing with the symptoms or am I dealing with the root cause? But ultimately, to a very practical level, the Scorpio moon will oppose Uranus and Jupiter at like 3-4 a.m. So some individuals could have a hard time focusing if you happen to be working at that time. With moon opposite Jupiter, you could be less enticed to do the practical and the tangible. You could be dreaming about the next trip that you want to take or the change that you want to see within your world, right? And then the Scorpio moon goes on to trine Mars and trine Neptune, because Mars and Neptune align this Sunday night. And this is really an energy to follow where the currents are taking you, the currents of inspiration, the currents of where it is that you're feeling inspired to take action, right? Like with Thursday, the day may not manifest as you thought that it was going to. Keep in mind, we always feel Mercury retrograde acting up when it's switching directions. Again, it's not literally switching directions, just from our vantage point here on Earth. Due to the ecliptic, it looks as though it is, but we feel it strongly when it's stationing. So you could be really feeling this Mercury stationing energy. Your mind can feel like it's not moving forward. You can feel tongue-tied, having a hard time finding the words. There could be certain technical difficulties. But I will say on Thursday, it may not go according to plan, but if we can follow the flow with the Scorpio moon trining Mars at 11:25 and then trining Neptune at 4:17 p.m., follow the flow. The currents might take you in a different direction than you thought that the date was going to take you. But if you pay attention to what's motivating you, what's inspiring, what's aligning for you, you can really find this nice cadence to the day. It won't take you where you thought you were going to go, but just follow the whisper of where you're feeling motivated or what's exciting you at this moment or where you're inspired with the trine to Neptune. And as you're following the flow, just know that the moon will be void at 4:17 p.m. And when the moon is void, important task we must avoid until it enters Sagittarius at 6:37 p.m. So this is sort of the energy, you know, after you have a meltdown and then you realize that it's not so bad. Like, that's why I love crying, is because it does release good chemicals in your body when you do allow yourself to cry. And sometimes just getting that release out of your body allows you to be positive again or be optimistic or see the good in life again, right? Oftentimes when things are stewing within and we're not allowing ourselves to have a response, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes when we just allow ourselves to flow through it and not fight the feeling, we get it out of our body and then we're like, wait, life isn't so bad. You know, life keeps going on. That's kind of the energy of the Sagittarius moon. And it sextiles Pluto. So again, it's finding the power around being optimistic about tomorrow, getting excited about what could be, who you could be. So on Friday, April 26th, we have another nothing day. We had a nothing day last week, we have a nothing day today. And again, it's not that nothing will happen, it's simply that we have no exact aspects being formed. We're still subject to astrological energies, there's just nothing exactly being felt. So firstly, let me just preface by saying that this Sunday night, we have Mars aligning with Neptune. And the thing about Neptune energy is that it does have this tendency to kind of like bleed out, right? It kind of spreads. And with Mars, Neptune, you could start to feel, the closer that we get to the weekend, you could start to feel like your motivation is going out into the abyss. That's kind of what Neptune energy does, is it kind of dissolves, right? And so with Mars, Neptune, you could just be feeling a lack of motivation. There could even be an energy around, what's the point? This can be powerful to follow the whispers. Again, where it is that you're feeling flow, where it is that you're feeling inspired. Because with the energy of Mars, Neptune, there can be certain arenas where you are experiencing resistance. But what I can also say is that with Mars, Neptune, there will also be other arenas, other activities where there's flow. And it's important with Mars, Neptune building in the cosmos to follow the flow. And what I mean by that, let's say you really intended on Friday, you're like, okay, for these 2 hours, I'm going to write a poem. And so you sit down and you're trying to write this poem and you're forcing and you're trying and nothing's coming out. And you keep having this whisper around, I want to work out or I want to clean out my closet. And rather than catching the wave of those activities, you're trying to force the activities of what you want your motivation to be directed towards. That's where Mars Neptune gets tricky because motivation typically doesn't go where you wanted it to go. It flows in different directions. And your job is to follow the flow. Like when else are you going to be in the mood to clean out your closet? Like follow that flow. At least you're moving energy. Like rather than forcing the same activity over and over and over again, when you follow the flow, you find that things get done with more ease, with more flow, because you're not forcing it. You're not forcing, I want this wave at this time. You're just catching the wave as they come up, as these waves of motivation come in. And with Mars Neptune, we could be feeling more sleepy, but if you feel a little bit of motivation, something feels a little sparkly, follow it, okay? Because we are so much more magical when we're listening to our body and listening to these cues rather than forcing what we think that we should be doing. Sometimes it's nice to just allow ourselves to flow with where am I feeling motivated? Where am I feeling inspired? And you might be saying, well, Haley, Comet, if I always just listened to what I wanted to do, I would just probably, watch Netflix and eat snacks all day. But I am truly of the belief that the more that we can work the muscle around really listening to our intuition and listening to where energy is guiding us, the more we are in alignment with the universe, the more that we are in co-creation with the divine. Sometimes when I wake up, I'm like, you've got to be a business owner, Haley. You've got to read your emails and do all the things. I will just spin my wheels trying to write out 2 words via email, fighting the urge around, gosh, I want to go for a walk, or gosh, I'm feeling called to vacuum for some reason. And it's like, if I would have just listened to those little cues that my energy was trying to guide me rather than forcing myself to write an email, I probably would have vacuumed and taken a walk and then got back to my computer and knocked out 6 or 7 emails because I was genuinely in the mood to do it. My motivation was genuinely taking me there. I was genuinely catching that wave as it came up. So just something to bear in mind, not just Friday, but also Saturday, Sunday, moving into next week with this Mars-Neptune energy building. I also want to say, in the morning time, we could feel the effects of last night's Sagittarius moon sextile Pluto, which is really the empowerment that comes from choosing to look forward and move forward. If there's one thing Sagittarius energy knows how to do, it's move forward. It is keep it moving. And with the energy of Sagittarius moon sextile Pluto, it's kind of that energy around, it is what it is, I'm going to keep it moving. And feeling the power that comes from that. Again, we can stay in the same loop around, but I want to do this, or I wanted our connection to be like this, or I wanted my day to go like this. But the energy of Sagittarius moon sextile Pluto is just like, it is what it is. I'm not going to leak out any of my precious energy or my precious power, really, with the energy of Pluto around trying to change what went down. Sometimes we just got to keep it moving. Just keep our arrow pointed the distance and keep it moving. And the next day, so Saturday, the Sagittarius moon will trine Mercury in Aries. So with that energy building on Friday, you could definitely feel some communicative energy, some chatting energy, maybe even new ideas. Again, Mercury's now moving forward as well. So there's a huge shift around, let's move forward, let's have some new conversations, let's brainstorm, let's keep it moving. That's the vibe. So on Saturday, April 27th, so firstly, the Sagittarius moon will trine Mercury in Aries shortly after midnight, as I highlighted, going on to square Saturn. And the energy of the moon squaring Saturn, there can be certain harsh realities you're being asked to face. And that's something that honestly Scorpio, like the full moon that we had earlier in the week, and Sagittarius, the sign that the moon is in now, have in common. It's a desire to really get to the truth. Like Sagittarius is the archetype of the truth seeker, and Scorpio wants to plunge beneath the surface, underneath the pleasantries and the veneer to get to the root of the issue. And both Scorpio and Sagittarius have that in common. They're really desiring the truth. And with the energy of the Sagittarius moon squaring Saturn, sometimes the truth's not so pretty, but also then the Sagittarius moon goes on to trine Chiron, but it does set you free, right? The truth does set you free. Like contemplating the altercation within the vibe check from your coworker's point of view, that probably wasn't pleasant to hear, right? To have this conversation brought back up. But again, it does pave the pathway forward to healing and moving forward. Not pleasant to deal with, not pleasant to face, but it allows us to move forward in a truthful and honest way. So definitely with the Sagittarius moon trining Chiron around 9:15 a.m. would be a great day to do something healing for the soul. Go for a hike, go for an adventure. You know, you could physically travel, go somewhere, you could mentally travel, read a book, you could spiritually travel by praying or meditating. There's just a desire to reconnect to the width of life, right? The Scorpio full moon, we went deep. Now we got to go wide. We got to go wide. We got to explore. We got to find a new sense of meaning. We got to be open to new horizons, essentially, is the ask. And that feels to be healing with the trine to Chiron. Just be mindful not to overdo it. Mars and Neptune are gathered together, building to conjoin the following day. So follow the flow of what feels adventurous or exciting. And with the Sagittarius moon building to square Mars that evening, you could be feeling drained. You could feel like you just like energetically hit a wall. You know, when you're at a party and then all of a sudden you're like, I need to go home right now. I am so exhausted. Or even being grumpy or cranky because you're so tired, like that could also be an energy. And you know, let's just say it. We've got the Sagittarius moon, we've got Mercury in Aries. Sometimes with Moon Mars, we can be feeling more frustrated or even emotionally reactive, and we might not be totally certain why. Keep in mind, with Mars and Neptune aligning, Mars is the planet of anger, and Neptune fogs and confuses what it touches. So we could be feeling frustrated and not sure why, or we could be reading into things or projecting things and kind of hurting our own feelings. But what I will say is the Sagittarius moon goes on to trine Venus right after. So if they're already ruffled feathers, it feels like the trine to Venus is smoothing them over. So on Sunday, April 28th, shortly after midnight, the Sagittarius moon squares Neptune. And you know, if you watch Magic Monday, what I always say about Neptune, there always tends to be interesting dreams around Neptune aspects. And we have Mars-Neptune aligning in the evening time. So on Sunday morning, you might be processing some wild dreams, some wild adventures, right? Sagittarius moon squaring Neptune that you went to in the astral realm. The moon squares up with Neptune at 12:31 a.m., at which point it is void. So if anyone's somewhere in the world where you're going to do something incredibly important around that time, maybe hold off until the moon enters Capricorn at 2:37 a.m. And this is not necessarily preferable territory for the moon. The moon does not particularly like being in Capricorn. The moon is in its detriment in the sign Capricorn. The two do not have natural affinity, but who does have affinity is the Capricorn moon with the Taurus sun. This is giving bougie. This is giving like an energy of Sunday around, you know, going shopping or eating a nice lunch, or even just finding ways to just elevate simple daily things you do with a little bit more glamour or a little bit more luxury, right? It doesn't take spending a lot of money to infuse a little bit of luxury into your day-to-day, to make life a little bit more pleasant, to enjoy the sensual pleasures of being alive, right? Earth, sun, earth, moon, like connect to your physical body, see some beautiful things, buy yourself flowers, light the candle, drink the nice wine. Like remember to live while you are alive. Remember to enjoy being here while you are here. And be careful with the wine if you do open it, because we do have Mars Neptune building in the evening time, which sometimes the energy of Neptune, we could just be wanting to check out from our reality, right? Just like, I don't want to deal with this. I want to run away. We could be losing ourselves within our own dreams, our own fantasies, just not wanting to deal with what is in front of us. We could be feeling more drained. We could be feeling more exhausted. And honestly, with Mars Neptune, like I said about Neptune, it has to deal with projections or things that aren't there, things that are, in fantasy. And taking it back to the vibe check, you had this whole beef with your coworker in your mind, right? Like you were just rehashing and replaying this conversation, just getting madder and madder at this person, not even taking the opportunity around, hey, this is bothering me. Like you made it this whole thing. You were battling this invisible enemy where as your coworker is like, oh my gosh, you completely misunderstood. I'm so sorry. How can we move forward? And you lost out on all of that energy. Like that's the thing about Mars is yes, Mars is anger, but it's also our energy. And so with Mars Neptune, be mindful around what invisible battles you are fighting and if they are constructive or destructive. If you feel like it's taking you in circles, because Mars Neptune can be an energy around following the flow and bringing your dreams to reality, like getting a nudge around, gosh, I really want to write this poem or I really want to do this, and feeling like the circumstances are completely supporting you in that, because again, these motivations are dripped down from the divine, right? It's kind of like whispered to us around, you should do this, you should do this. It's really, life gets really magical when you're just in flow with where universe source energy is guiding you. And that can be Mars Neptune. It can be this constructive energy around using this imaginative energy in order to create magic here on planet Earth. But also with Mars Neptune, we could be getting lost in fantasy around having these invisible battles with people in our head, or even just indulging in these fantasy realities that aren't allowing us to move forward here and now. So Mars conjunct Neptune asks you, are you fighting to bring your dreams here to reality, or are you fighting invisible battles with invisible enemies within your head? It asks you, are you flowing with where universe source energy is guiding you, or are you forcing your way upstream, trying to make your plan this way work out, not paying attention to where the universe is like, no, there's so much more flow and so much more joy and so much more ease this way. Flow with the Neptune energy. Try not to force against it. If you are feeling inclined towards rest, your body needs it. Mars Neptune can make us feel more drained, but I truly do believe when we stop forcing our own energy, when we stop forcing our own body, the tides will turn. You will feel motivated again. You will feel inspired to create art. You will feel inspired to clean your house. Just follow the flow. Life gets a lot more magical when you do. So my loves, that is our week. The Magic Monday mantra of the week is, I allow myself the space and the grace to feel. And to feel deeply at that, I'll add that on to our Magic Monday mantra, because the Scorpio full moon is asking you to embrace the fact that you contain multitudes, that your emotions contain extremes, and that's okay. These things only gain power over us when we push them into the crevices of our mind and push them into the shadows where they get bigger and badder and more scary and fester there in the darkness. Oftentimes, if we just allow ourselves to flow with our own emotions, it lessens its power over us. We take the lesson around, oh, what is this emotion teaching me? Or where is this emotion truly coming from, right? Rather than hiding the symptoms and burying the root cause, really allowing your emotions to be teachers around, what am I meant to learn from you? Because oftentimes when we shut ourselves off, when we don't allow ourselves to feel, we shut off even more than just our emotions. Like we have to keep in mind within astrology, moon also governs intuition. And so when we cut off the ebb and flow, the wax and wane of our own emotional landscape, we also cut off our connection to source energy and where it can be whispering to us. The ruler of the Scorpio full moon within traditional astrology is Mars, who aligns with Neptune this week. So it's sort of this ask around, yes, we could be processing certain emotions or certain epiphanies, but if we allow ourselves to relax into the flow, to deeply feel this low, knowing that it will turn into a high, to feel this ebb, knowing it'll turn into a flow, to feel this temporary lull, knowing that it will lead to our growth and our pulse forward, we are in flow with the divine, right? We're allowing ourselves to follow the whispers, because sometimes when you stop trying to fight something around, I just need to cry right now, or I just need to go for a walk, or I just need to write this poem, or what have you, you allow yourself to really dial into this world as a cyclical being, as someone who is here to feel and experience and follow the whispers of where source energy is guiding you. Allowing yourself to have your own ebbs and flows and your own cycles allows you to co-create with spirit, co-create with source even more so. So if you made it to the end, let me know by commenting the milk. emoji. Shout out to my almond milk meltdown. You know, if you have a silly meltdown this week, can you come back and comment below and tell me what caused it, or what was like the final straw that did it for you, that finally made you cry? I would love to know. If you are watching via computer, or you don't have emojis, or you just like playing the word game, use the word milk within a sentence to let me know that you made it to the end. My Instagram handle is @HaleyCometAstrology. My TikTok is the same. I would so love to connect with you over there. And until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay calm.